Pirate Nation. Welcome to another broadcast of the Anchor Podcast with Dr. Brandon Hubbard, where we aim to keep you inspired, informed, and anchored in what's happening in Chilton ISD. Today's podcast, we welcome a special guest, Dr. Elaine Fagner, a geologist, professor at M.C.C. We welcome you to Chilton ISD and to the Anchor Podcast.
We are just thrilled to be here and honored. Thank you.
Not a problem. So, Dr. Fagner, just you tell us a little bit about who you are, sure. Your background.
So, I am a geologist by trade, but I didn't always do geology.
Okay.
So I grew up in a home that was scientifically based and got into college and decided, hey, I think I want to go into coaching, but I love other types of sciences like earth sciences and geology, and that's ultimately what I ended up doing. But then I took a detour and worked for the Brazos River Authority in water quality and watershed protection, and then I moved to Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Back then it was TNRCC, helping businesses and governments comply, just like school districts, with environmental regulations for the state of Texas. And then I ended up full-time at M.C.C. and been there for over 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us, you're a geologist. Exactly what do geologists do?
Well, I bet most of you out there are thinking, oh, I bet she just knows rocks, fossils, and minerals. That's a good guess. But there's more than that. So geologists study lots of disciplines. For example, we look at earthquakes and tsunamis. Like there's just been a big time earthquake in Taiwan this week. And there are some even today. And aftershocks up in the New York area, New York State. So we do that. We look at things like desert systems and river systems and groundwater, drinking water. We look at weathering and erosion processes. We look at the interior of the earth, and we even care about what's happening in outer space.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that kind of brings us to why we are here today.
Sure.
I'm sure many of our viewers know that April 8th is a big event in the world.
It's an astronomical event.
Yes. And so our area is a great place to see the total solar eclipse.
Most assuredly. We are in the path of totality, which means we are some of the most fortunate, luckiest people on the planet on April the 8th, starting around 12:20 to about 3 p.m. And we're going to talk about why, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, for real.
So to help me to understand, I'm a scientist, sort of, a biochemist, biochemistry major. So I'm not as up to date on astronomy and those astrological or astronomy or what y'all know what I'm trying to say, Pirate Nation.
Absolutely.
Those types of sciences, right? And so help me to understand why this total solar eclipse is so important.
So are you 136 years old?
I am not. I may look it sometimes, but I'm not.
Well, I'm older than you, so that's pretty impressive. And I'm guessing you're not 293 years old.
I am not 293 years old.
And I'm guessing none of our listeners out there are. So we did have the oldest man alive as of this morning. And so that they're around 114, 115 years old. So not even that person has seen a total solar eclipse in this area. Let me be very clear, in this area, because the last one occurred in 1888.
Oh, wow.
The next one, none of us should be alive for unless you're a true Highlander like me. I'm kind of teasing on that, but 293 years from now, which is 2317.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time from now. So we're looking at some remarkably unusual circumstances. And what makes this eclipse different from some of the other total eclipses is the length of time that we should be experiencing what's called totality.
Okay.
Just to kind of give our listeners and viewers what does totality mean? It means that the sun is fully covered by the moon for that specified amount of time. For example, most solar eclipses don't yield 4+ minutes of totality. But there will be one in like 2027 in Egypt, if you want to travel to see the pyramids.
Wow.
That'll be a little over 6 minutes of totality.
Oh, wow.
The next solar eclipse that's full, it actually will be in the Arctic Circle, and you'll need to go to a place like Iceland, that type of area. And they have fewer minutes than we do of totality. So it's unusual to have this amount of time. And Waco, Chilton, the surrounding areas, this whole stripe that you keep seeing on the news and on maps, that is a rare thing. And we have just this block of line where this sun is going to get covered by the moon in its trajectory, where the moon's just passing in front of the sun, and that process that literally is going to yield some of the largest, longest times right here in Texas.
That's amazing.
That's why everybody's coming to Texas.
Yes. Speaking of everybody coming to Texas, how many people, do you know how many people are expected? Or
Yeah, I actually have some data. Let me look on this. And this was as recent as last week. We are expecting probably in the order of hundreds of thousands of visitors that aren't normal people that live in our area to come. I mean, we could approach literally closer to 700,000, 800,000.
wow.
I mean, that's hard to say if this particular area will do it, but we can guarantee that we're looking at least 100,000 more than what Waco itself would have. So the population of Waco is what? It's a little over 100,000.
Yes,
So we
yes.
should probably double that. And that's not just the people who are going to stay in hotels and
Oh,
camp.
wow.
A majority of our visitors will be driving.
Okay.
So that is one of the big concerns. If you've been listening to the news or social media, you've been kind of following that. People are like, oh, things are going to get challenging and difficult for the eclipse. I think what they're really referring to is how do we manage safely people who are coming in for a transient period of time, and that could be anywhere from like today. We should start to see people really arriving.
Oh, wow.
Even some have already been here, but in long weekend type of thing where they took off Friday and Monday with their families to come see totality or traveled internationally. There are people all over already in Waco, Texas area
wow.
from countries across the globe. And so these people came and traveled because they follow these events and want to see this remarkable 4 minutes and 13 seconds in Waco, Texas that we have totality for, which is darkness, essentially, when the sun is completely covered by the moon. On either side of that, you'll have what's called a partial solar eclipse. So there's actually 3 types of solar eclipses.
Okay.
So we're going to have 2 on Monday. We're going to have the total, and we're going to have the partial if you're in the path of totality.
Right.
What we're not going to have is something called annular. And we did have that about a year ago or so in not exactly this precise area, but you could certainly have seen it with a short drive. And that's where we are too far away from the sun. We're at apogee, not from the sun, from the moon, excuse me, where Earth and the moon are too far apart. So when the moon covers the sun, like it would be on Monday, the 8th, it's too little. So it doesn't cover the entire surface. So what it makes is a ring of fire around the outside. And if you get a chance to see an annular eclipse in your life, it rocks. It's awesome.
Well, I will definitely love to
Absolutely.
see that. That would be great, especially if the drive isn't too far.
Well, it's one you'll see more frequently than a total solar
Okay.
eclipse, but I am definitely certain that it is worth the drive or a trip just to see an annular eclipse. And it is, by definition, what a solar eclipse is that we'll see on Monday. It's just that the moon is just too far away from us to block out the sun.
Okay.
So want to make clear to all of our listeners and viewers that if you're in the path of totality, 2 eclipses you'll see on Monday. You're going to see a partial eclipse leading up to totality, and then a partial eclipse again, as the process of where the moon just completely is, and the sun is now being completely out of that path and is moving on up to where it's going to go through the Northeast and even up to New England area.
Oh, wow.
So they have totality as well. We're not the only folks, but there's just a narrow window of that totality. So there are people coming from all over the United States, in addition to international, who will drive in maybe just for the day.
Oh, wow.
Or for a couple of days to see this thing. And that's kind of a reason to be concerned about how do we handle traffic, how do we handle even gassing, how do we deal with potential cellular service interruption or internet interruption, what happens if the roadways get clogged up and there's an emergency. So emergency management folks learned from the last total solar eclipse in a major way what needed to happen throughout totality area, so we didn't make the same mistakes again.
Yes.
And that's what all this planning's been about.
Excellent. So I've been following a little bit of social media, a little bit of the news, and there's talk of temperature drops.
For sure.
Can you explain what'll happen then?
So you have to assume that when we're at totality, it's going to be right around 1:38 to 1:40-ish p.m., depending on exactly where you are in this geographic area. So right now in the spring, there is a 50-50 chance on April the 8th on any given year that we'll have rain. First of all, you need to know that. Okay, so
wow.
that's a statistic that a lot of people don't know. But at that time of day, I just want you to think about what it would be like to be outside on a normal spring day. So it's usually pretty warm. When I came in this afternoon, it was already warm, and it is right at, when I arrived, right around 2:15. So we would be right past that totality incident, and it's pretty warm outside. So you'd expect the temperature to drop as much as 20 degrees.
Oh, wow.
And so we're talking very quickly. So let's think about how that could translate to issues with wildlife. I get this question a lot. Well, what's going to happen with the animals? A lot, because I know my cats always are ready to eat right at a certain time of day. And when it's dark, or when it just immediately starts to get light outside, it's time to eat. So they might get a little disoriented. If they are nocturnal animals, they could easily come out. So I gave a presentation about a week ago, and a question was, well, what about snakes and reptiles? So I had to think about it, because first I was like, well, probably not going to be a great effect. Well, it might, because here's why. During the day, most of our reptiles find and seek shelter under rocks. That's just what they do. They may come out for a while. They may get some sunning so they can stay warm and continue to operate. But when it's starting to get a little cooler, they may very well want to come out. So they may either be seeking shelter or seeking food when the sun changes in that just 4 minutes and 38 seconds. So no fair petting rattlesnakes during the eclipse, right? We don't want to do that.
Definitely.
Leave the wildlife alone. So animals who are used to being out at night, you might see them start to act like it is a nocturnal event, because to them it's going to be for 4 minutes and 4 minutes and, 28 seconds is right at that. Or no, 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Excuse me. It's 4 minutes and 13 seconds for our area. So right about 4 minutes, we will have everything changing like it's nighttime. So it should be dark. Even if it's cloudy and rainy, you're still going to have a solar eclipse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
That's not going to change that fact.
Excellent. So are there any other environmental impacts or that you can foresee or that we should expect?
Well, I think it's important to talk a little bit about meteorology, and not because of the clouds that are being predicted to be there that day. So when you drop temperature really quickly, you are easily approaching what's called dew point. And when dew point happens, if there's what's called condensation nuclei in the atmosphere, that's like dust. the water droplets and vapor can attach themselves to that. And if you reach that temperature of dew point, that's what dew point is. It saturates and it brings moisture. So that's why you always see the newscaster weather person say, oh, this is what the dew point is. So it'd be interesting to kind of see what the dew point is that day. And then if we hit totality, when we hit it, it's going to drop temperatures really, really lower than, and it probably lower than dew point. So you could have some condensation in the air. That doesn't mean that that's going to block us from seeing the event, but that's something that people need to know. That's not an unusual event. Environmentally, I don't really think there's a concern to the environment in terms of protecting it, because this is a natural phenomena. However, it's an unusual one to most of us to ever see a total solar eclipse in our lifetime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing and interesting. So talking solar eclipse, one of the concerns of many is eye safety.
It should be.
Yeah. So what can we do to safely view the eclipse?
So first you need safety rated glasses. So sometimes I get the question, well, can I wear welder's glasses or welder's helmets? The short answer is if they're in good working order and they're rated appropriately, yes. I would not do that. I would use glasses that have been rated by ophthalmologists as in that association realm that says, hey, this is safe for you to look at, and here is why. If you look at the sun for even just a few brief seconds, certainly minutes, without proper solar protection on, which is not sunglasses, even 2 pairs, 3 pairs, 4 pairs is not enough, because that's not the type of protection that's required to block out the sun and the solar radiation coming to your eyes. You could end up with something called solar retinopathy. And solar retinopathy is essentially burning your retina. That's a permanent likely damage. So the young people listening to this of all ages, you want your eyes for a lifetime. And if you've ever had a parent or a grandparent end up with maybe cataracts, or if they went blind, like my dad had macular degeneration, so he basically saw an annular eclipse all the time. And that's because he had damage to his retinas. So you don't want to ever take a chance. Not even when you're looking at pinhole devices. That's another question I get. Is it safe to look through a pinhole? My standard answer is with your safety glasses on. With your glasses on. The only time to take them off is when we're at full totality. That's the only time. But as that sun is starting to peak back out and we're getting into a partial solar eclipse, literally you should have a timer going on and start when it's totality, 4 minutes. And you should be getting those glasses back on before 4 minutes and 13 seconds is over with.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Make sure you're safe.
Okay.
If you have if you're smaller in size, or let's say that your folks in elementary school, maybe they don't have fully developed in terms of size faces as they will as an adult, they need to make sure they have the right size glasses. And I understand y'all are providing those.
We are.
So go,
we are.
Chilton. That's awesome. Protecting your people.
Definitely. Definitely. What will you be doing, Dr. Fagner, during the total solar eclipse?
Rain, shine, snow, darkness, I am out there. I am out there for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I have been counting the days for almost a year for this event. And we are now on single-digit days. We are on the downstretch of one of the most remarkable astronomical events. I was being facetious, but also literal, when this is truly an astronomical, out of our solar system experience. I mean, none of us are going to get to see this unless we travel to another location, spend the money, and go see it elsewhere. And even then, the chances of us seeing it this long are very
slim.
Very rare. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. What else? What other information? Is there anything else that I might not know to ask about this phenomenon?
Yes, I think so. On the science side of it, eclipses are simply when the sun, the earth, and the moon are aligned. So whether you have a lunar or a solar eclipse, a couple of important details here. A lunar eclipse is where we cast a shadow onto the moon. So we are basically the in-between body.
Right.
But in this case, the moon is blocking out our vision of the sun. So during a lunar eclipse, you don't need those glasses because you're not looking directly at the sun. But
right.
during a solar, any type of solar, whether it's partial, annular, or full solar eclipse, you're going to need those glasses. And that can only happen during the day and can only happen at new moon phase. So there's multiple phases of the moon, and most of us are most familiar probably with quarter moon, half moon, full moon. So if you're kind of watching the sky tonight, like Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, you're going to notice there's just going to be a little sliver left of that moon. And because we're in a waning phase, not a waxing phase, and we're going to end up to where you're not even going to see the moon for at all on solar eclipse day. That is a requirement for a total solar eclipse or any solar eclipse is to have new moon phase. For lunar phase, you must have full moon phase. So that's something a lot of people don't know. Fundamentally, those are two kind of important requirements of how they're similar, how they're different. But the deal we have going on this Monday, I can't underscore how incredibly fortunate we all are to see this.
Wow. And I hope our 8th grade science students were listening to.
I hope so.
I hope they're listening to this. The waxing, the waning, the new moon phase. That's part of their science teaks. And it's one of those subject areas that we often struggle with. So 8th graders, make sure you listen to that.
Yeah, I'm going to tell all of you out there, the phases of the moon are kind of cool and interesting. And once you see how they correlate to your everyday life and understanding that astronomy and stuff like that in science is not just some abstract thing, but it has direct relativity to what we do and as humans, how we live and survive, even astronomy, because we care about what's happening in outer space because we want to answer some fundamental questions about how the universe is made, how it operates, but just as importantly, we care about how that could affect us as humans. And we wouldn't be on Earth if it weren't for a couple of really important scientific aspects, and some of that's related to astronomy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Never
and
really
geology.
considered that.
Don't let me leave out geology.
Yes. Well, Dr. Fagner, anything else that you could think of?
Well, if people are worried about can they look at the solar eclipse with their glasses on, I'm going to tell them they can safely look as long as they don't look out the outsides of them.
Yes.
But they need to wear the right glasses. I would tell them, even if you are not where you can see it 100%, you need to get outside and experience what that totality is and expect that you will be almost moved. I don't even want to know if spiritual is the right word, but in an emotional, profound way, you will be very different from this experience because it's shocking. It's just in an awesome way. It's shocking to have daylight and then not have daylight. So I'd leave you with this thought. What did people 1,000, 5,000 years ago think when this happened?
Oh, wow.
Was it a good thing? Were they worried about some kind of omen because the sun disappeared for however long? Did they think that some terrible thing or wonderful thing had happened? We know now what it is, eclipses. And that kind of actually links to physics and Einstein. So lots of people talking about, physics and his theory of relativity. Eclipses are a part of that equation of how he was able to predict that. And so scientists are able to predict down to the days and hours based on how long our lunar months are. And so it's going to be a long time before we have another one of these events.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Well, there you have it, Pirate Nation, directly from Dr. Fagner. From M.C.C. She's given us great information about what's to come on Monday, April the 8th. We hope that you are able to be a part of that spectacular event. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and we hope that you are able to take part of it. We want to remind you, Chilton ISD, we are in school on Monday, April the 8th for our No Sunday Fun Day.
Oh, what a blast of a name.
Yes,
That's great.
No Sunday Fun Day. We will start regularly. Our regular time in the mornings, we'll have our regular procedures, but around noon, we'll go to the field for our No Sunday Fun Day activities. Parents, please talk to your students, your children, about wearing their glasses while we are there as a safety precaution. But we want all of our students here so that we can enjoy some educational activities and learn and understand the importance of this total solar eclipse. Thank you, Pirate Nation. And until next time, we want you to keep refusing to sink. Have a great day.